Hello, everybody. Just the other camera there. My apologies. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Hey. We're starting today Siman Tuf Samach Vav. So we're actually starting on the very bottom of Samach Vav Amid Beis. We're going to be doing primarily Samach Zayin Amid Aleph, but we're starting on the bottom line of Samach Vav Amid Beis. Im Haroik Umei Raglayim V'Doimad Machmitzim. The Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch, is going to be discussing the question of whether or not saliva or meraglayim, urine, have the ability to cause chimutz if they are mixed together with grain, with flour. Ubay vav seifim, and here we're going to have 6 seifim. Says the Mechaber in Seif Aleph, Lo yilois adam chitim, somebody should not chew, masticate wheat, v'yitain al gabe makasai, in order to grind it into an ingredient that was used in a salve or in a poultice, to put it onto a wound, mipnei shehein machmitzos, because the flour, the grain, will become chametz, shaharoik machmitz, because saliva has the ability to initiate the chimutz process. It will cause the flour to become chametz. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Seif Aleph near the bottom of Samach Vav Amud Beis. V'yitein al gabe makosai. Ritzaynoi loymar, says the Chavetz Chaim, what the Mechaber wants to say over here is shal yedei le'isa b'fiv, because by virtue of him chewing up this flour or these grains in his mouth, misarvim hachitim baroik, the wheat kernels will become mixed together with his saliva, v'yachmitzu, and they will become chametz kisheyishu al gabe makkah, when they are then put onto the wound, b'shir mil, after the time it takes to travel the distance of a mil, after 18 minutes. And then you could be over on the Isser Lav de Araisa, on the biblical prohibition of both Ba'yera and Ba'yemotze, the Isser of having chametz. Now, the Sharetzian says over here in Ois Katan Aleph, Avo Beloy Nisina al Gabe Makkah, to chew up these wheat kernels without placing them on the wound. In other words, what did the Chavetz Chaim say here? The Chavetz Chaim is telling you the halakha the Mechaber is giving us is, what's the problem? The problem is you're going to chew up the wheat kernels. The wheat kernels are going to get ground up and mixed with the saliva in your mouth. That will initiate the chimutz process. Then when you put it on the wound, after it sits on the wound for 18 minutes, it will become chametz. How about if you don't put it on the wound? Says the Sharetzian, were you not to place the ground up chitim, the ground up wheat kernels, on the wound, rather you would keep them in your mouth, even if you were to chew up those wheat kernels constantly the whole day, they'll never become chametz. The oisekhu, because while you're chewing it, it's like working the dough. We said earlier that as long as you work a dough, if you mix up a dough and you go and you shape it with your hand and then you put it on the table and you roll it out with the rolling pin and then you take it and you rumple it up, you roll it out, as long as you're playing with the dough, as long as you're working that dough, it's never going to become chametz. Same thing is true if you're going to take the wheat kernels, place them in your mouth and chew them. As long as you're chewing them, they can't become chametz. The problem only is that you're going to take it and you're going to take it out of your mouth and smear it on your wound, or put it on the bandage and put it on your wound. Then it's going to sit, and then it's after 18 minutes it will become chametz. In the Dirshu, footnote number 3 here, he says, "Ukemavur b'Shulchan Aruch la'el." We had this earlier in the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tuf Nun Tesiv Beis. Shekol zman shemesaskim b'batzek, as long as you work a dough, afilu kol hayom einam achmitz. Even if you work that dough for the entire day without baking it, it will never become chametz. It only becomes chametz when you leave it for 18 minutes without working it. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah Vayter, the bottom line of Samach Vav Amud Beis, let's say you chewed up these wheat kernels and you turned it into a paste and you put it on your wound, and you did this before Pesach, before the Zman Isser Chametz. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Sarach lahasiran kishetagiyah shashishis be'erev Pesach. You would have to remove this salve from your wound on Erev Pesach after Chatzos, after the Zman Chametz. Elim came kvar nisracha ad shenifsala ma'achilas kelev. I'm sorry, I said after Chatzos. I misspoke. You're going to have to remove it before Chatzos. You're going to have to remove it at the beginning of the 6th hour. You're going to have to remove it. Elim came kvar nisracha ad shenifsala ma'achilas kelev, unless this salve will become spoiled to the extent where even a dog would not eat it. If by placing it on your wound it becomes bloody and gooey, and maybe it has some bacitracin ointment mixed in it, so now it's nifsal me'achilas kelev, then you don't have to take it off the wound. The kasra paiskim, the paiskim write, the kol zeh b'chitim shel Yisrael. This whole discussion is talking about when you chewed up wheat kernels that belong to a yid. Aval chitim shel goy. However, if you had wheat kernels that belonged to a non-Jew, shel asan hagoy, where the non-Jew went ahead and chewed them up in order to produce this poultice. Of course, this is something that in our understanding of medicine, we would never do this. You're going to take something that somebody else chewed up and put it in his mouth and put it on your wound, especially nowadays in the COVID-19 days. This sounds completely antithetical to anything that you would do. However, lahalacha, if you did have a non-Jew chew up his wheat kernels to produce the ingredients for this poultice, ve'eshilon liYisrael lahanichan al gabe makosei bepesach, and then he went ahead and he loaned it to the Yid to put it on his wound on Pesach. So the Yid is not taking ownership of it. Harei zeh mutter, this would be permissible, imein ha'achraya shel haritia al ha'Yisrael, as long as the Yid is not taking achrayas, he's not taking responsibility where he's achroi to return this poultice. Da haritia shel akum eina over b'bal yerah, because there is no Isser Lav Da'araisa on having in your on having by you chametz of a non-Jew. There's no Isser of Bal Yerah, Bal Yemotzei to have a non-Jew's chametz by you. So you're not going to be over in Isser Da'araisa by having this poultice that belongs to the non-Jew. Now let's say you need this poultice and a non-Jew doesn't have wheat. What a Yid could do is he could take some wheat kernels and give them to the non-Jew. And now the non-Jew will chew them up. And now the Yid should accept this poultice from the non-Jew as a loan. He shouldn't take it into his possession. Even though we saw previously that while there is no Isser Lav Da'araisa of Bal Yerah and Bal Yemotzei on a non-Jew's chametz, however, as far as deriving benefit from chametz, there is an Isser Hana on chametz, even if that chametz belongs to a non-Jew. You're not allowed to derive benefit from a non-Jew's chametz on Pesach. So how could you derive benefit from this non-Jew's poultice? Shani Hacha, over here the halacha is different. Because this hana that you're getting from this poultice, this is not kiderech hanasai. This is not the typical way that you derive benefit from wheat kernels. You don't traditionally derive benefit from wheat kernels by chewing them into a paste and smearing them on your skin. So since this is shaloi kiderech, ve'ein by iser rak midivrei seifrim, so therefore this iser, this prohibition, is only an iser d'Rabbanan. There is no Isser Da'araisa on having Hana Shaloi Kedarkoi in an unusual manner. When you're deriving benefit from chametz in an unusual manner, that's only an Isser D'Rabbanan. Uvemakam Chayli, and in a place when we're dealing with an ill individual, when we need this for refuah, va'afilo ein bai sakana, even if it's a chayli she'ein bai sakana, even if the ill individual is in no danger at all, loi gazru. Over there, the Chachamim did not decree a prohibition against deriving benefit. So since this is Hana Shaloi Kedarkai, and therefore it's only Nisad Rabbanan, so B'makam Chayli Legazer Rabbanan. When we call Makam, nevertheless, says the Chavetz Chaim, Im Yuchal Hisrape Kishirake Chritia Zushal Chitin Al Yedei Mei Peros, if there's a different way to produce this salve, if instead of going through all of this and having it belong to a non-Jew, etc., etc. If what you could do is you could take some chitim and you could soften them up into the necessary paste using mei peros, and we've said ein peros, ein machmitzen, that mei peros, liquids other than water do not cause chimutz. So then we should rather do it that way, instead of using saliva. Instead, we should use mei peros. Ice cotton bays. The Mechaber said that the reason this is problematic is because the grains will become a chametz when you chew them up and they're exposed to the saliva. Says the Chavetz Chaim, ice cotton bays. Says the Chavetz Chaim, the cholzeh im makasai ein boy sakana. This entire discussion where we're telling you that you should refrain from producing this therapeutic paste because there's a problem of chametz. This is only when we're dealing with a situation where there is no chash, there is no concern of sakana, of danger. Avol kisheyesh by sakana. But if we're dealing with a situation where chas v'chalila, somebody is in danger, mutter af b'mokem sheyesh lav debal yerah, then it would be mutter to produce this poultice and use this poultice even in a case where there's going to be an isser lav da'araisa. In other words, even if the Yid is going to take his own wheat kernels and chew them up himself and produce it as a poultice and create chametz. So there's mamish and isser lav da'araisa. If we're dealing with a question of sakana, where somebody is in danger, absolutely you have to do it. Not only you're allowed to do it, you must do it. Im rak efsher sherafu utayoloi. This is even true if there's only a chance that the refuah will be efficacious. If we know for certain that the refuah will be efficacious, certainly you must do it. But the Chavetz Chaim is telling you, even if there's only a chance that this refuah will be efficacious, if it's a question of sakana, you must do it. Ve'ein b'kal lasis b'derech heter, unless it's very simple to create it in another way, which is equally efficacious and which is 100% mutter. Otherwise, go ahead and do it, even in the place of it is a daraisa. We know, certainly pekuach nefesh, or even over chil Shabbos. Even to eat or drink chametz in a question of refuah, if it's necessary for refuah, for a chayla sheyesh by sakana, if there's an ill individual who is in danger, he's even allowed to eat or drink chametz mamish on Pesach. Because when there's a danger over there, not only is it mutter, it's required. You have to go ahead and do what's necessary to save somebody. I always, whenever, I haven't said it in a while because we haven't come across this halacha in a while, but I always remember the time that my Rebbe, Berurah Feinstein, was by a simcha out of town, and there was an elderly gentleman at the simcha who fell. Shabbos morning after davening, he was walking out of shul, and he took a bad fall, and he really smacked his head quite hard into the sidewalk. And the EMTs said that he must go to the hospital. He wasn't exhibiting any symptoms, but they said he must go to the hospital. And we checked, chas chalila, certainly an elderly individual takes a bad bang on the head, you have to worry about a bleed, about a clotting. So they said he must go to the hospital. The elderly gentleman said, there's no way I'm going to the hospital. I'm not getting into that ambulance. I grew up in the day and age in the United States of America where a Yid got a job early in the week and he lost his job on Erev Shabbos when he told his boss he can't come in on Shabbos. And I was one of those individuals who lost his job every week and was looking for a new job every week. And I was Meiser Nefesh for Shabbos my whole life. I'm not going ahead and being Mechal Shabbos now. So they went to Berurah Feinstein and they asked him, what do we do? And he said he must go to the hospital. And they said he's not going to go. He's not going to listen. So Berurah said, let me speak to him. Berurah went over to the fellow, bent down, spoke to him for 2 minutes in his ear. And right after he finished, the fellow got up and said, okay, I'm going. He got into the ambulance. He went to the hospital. So people asked Berurah, what did you tell him? So he said, it's very simple. I asked him, when you're not here anymore, what do you want people to say about you? Do you want people to say that you refrained from being Mechal Shabbos your whole life because you are a stubborn, tough man. So yeah, the reason you were able to sustain losing your job every week and being Shomer Shabbos was because you're a tough guy and you're a stubborn guy, and nobody could convince you to do anything. Is that what you wanted to say? Or do you want it to say that the reason you were willing to lose your job every Shabbos is because you were going to do the Ratzon HaBoreh? You were going to do and fulfill the will of the Rabbeinu Shalom at all times, no matter what. And because Shabbos was so precious to you. If you get into the ambulance now the Ratzon HaBoreh, the will of the Rabbeinu Shalom now is that you should get into the ambulance on Shabbos. You're an elderly man, you banged your head, the doctors say you need to be checked out. What the Rabbeinu Shalom wants now is you should get up, get into the ambulance, and go on Shabbos. So if you do that now, then people will say you always did the Ratzon HaBoreh. If, on the other hand, you refuse to go now, then it's just you're a stubborn guy and you don't listen to anybody. So when the guy heard that, got up, went straight into the ambulance. Okay, now we go to the top of Samach Zayin Amud Aleph. Let's go to Seif Beis. If somebody feeds grain, he feeds barley to his behemoth, to his animal, and now he has leftover barley after the animal finished eating, and he sees that it's moistened from saliva. Says the Shulchan Aruch, tzarich levar. You have to be mevayer. You have to destroy this barley. Says the Mishnah Berurah, a nice cut in Gimel. Tzarich levaram. You have to destroy this barley. Deroik machmitz v'chanal, because saliva can cause chimus, like we just saw in Seif Aleph. So here you have grain, you have kernels of barley that are exposed to saliva, and if you don't destroy them before they become chametz, they're going to become chametz, and you can be over and by your rab by your matzeh. Therefore, you must destroy them. Even if the animal didn't spend 18 minutes eating his breakfast, nevertheless, if you don't destroy this barley, eventually, since the chimutz process has been initiated by the moisture of the saliva, it's going to continue. The grain is going to become chametz, and you'll be over daraisa by your rabbi yamatzeh. So you must destroy this grain. That's what the Mechaber says. Now let's look at the second line in the Shulchan Aruch, the words of the Ramah, which at face value seem very confusing, but we'll discuss it in the Mishnah Berurah and we'll understand what pshat is. Says the Ramah, Haga, Avol mistam ein lachush. What did the Mechaber say? The Mechaber said if you look in the leftover barley and you see saliva in the barley, then tzarich levaram, then you have to destroy it. But what if you don't see saliva in the barley? So says the Ramah, mistam ein lachush. If you don't see saliva, you don't have to worry, oh, maybe it was exposed to saliva and therefore I have to destroy it. Why? So the Ramah says a very puzzling reason. Hayulu kvar bitel. Since you already did bittel on the chametz, so therefore there's no question of a daraisa over here, and you don't know for certain that there is moisture here. You don't see any saliva. So unless you know for sure that there was saliva, you don't have to do beer. You don't have to destroy it. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah will point out what's very puzzling about this Ramah, and he'll explain the Ramah to us. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Dalet, Hayelu Kvar Bittul. So first, the Mishnah Berurah explains to us, taken at face value, what the Ramah seems to be saying. Since you did bittul, what does that mean you did bittul? On Erev Pesach, you Leil Arba Asar, the night going into Erev Pesach, you did B'dikas Chametz. After B'dikas Chametz, you said Kol Chamira v'Chamira, and you are mevatel all of the chametz that you don't know about. The chametz that you know about, you aren't mevatel the night of B'dika. The chametz, the bagels that you're holding on to for breakfast the next morning, you aren't mevatel. The 10 pieces of bread that you held on to burn the next morning, you aren't mevatel. But you're saying, the night of B'dikas chametz, you're saying, any chametz that I didn't find that I don't know about, I want to be mevatel. Now you wake up in the morning on Erev Pesach, you make your fire, you burn your chametz, and you say Kol Chamira again. And now you're mevatel all of your chametz. what you know about, what you don't know about, what you found, what you didn't find. You're mavatal all your chametz. So says the Mishnah Berurah, since you did bittul, v'imkein yatsa mechshash daraisa. We said early on at the beginning of Hilchas Pesach, we said very clearly that midaraisa, it's only necessary to do one of two things to make sure that you shouldn't be over any on Berurah matzah daraisa with chametz on Pesach. Either you have to find all your chametz and destroy it, or you just have to be mavatal all your chametz. You have to say that all your chametz should be like Akfar de Alma, nullify it all. Now you don't even have to search for it. You nullified everything. That's to take away from the daraisa. Midrabanan, the Chazal said that's not enough, because the Chazal were afraid if you're going to rely on bittul, your bittul might not be a real heartfelt bittul. You might say that you're being mavatal all your chametz, but really, you're holding on to it. You're going to have it after Pesach, so it's not a real bittul. So the Chazal said you have to do both. You have to search for your chametz and get rid of it, and you might not find everything, so you also have to do bittul. You have to do both. Over here, says the Chavetz Chaim, you already did bittul. So since you did bittul, you already covered the bases as far as the daraisa. Once you do bittul chametz, you only need to do bir chametz midrabanan. You only need to destroy your chametz midrabanan. Therefore, kolzman sheni yedei bar sheyesh rir. So in this case, where we don't know for certain that there's saliva mixed in with the barley, since you already did bittul, so you already covered the bases midaraisa, and the only potential problem that you have over here is in Issa Darabanan, and we don't know for sure that any saliva got mixed in with this barley. So, all right, we're not mechaskin on Isura. We don't have a presumption of Isser to presume that there definitely was saliva over here, and you definitely have a problem. That's the Ramah taken at face value. However, says the Chavetz Chaim, the Tamu alav ha'achronim. The achronim look at this Ramah in wonderment. The Maimahani bittul shall call Chamira be'erev Pesach lechametz she'ata bePesach nischametz. What does it help that you said kol Chamira on erev Pesach and you did bittul on erev Pesach? How is that efficacious now for barley that just became chametz now on Pesach? You can't be mavatal on erev Pesach chametz that is created on Pesach. That bittul that you did then doesn't help now. So what does this Ramah mean? That you already did bittul, so you already covered the bases with daraisa. Because therefore the Achronim write the haloshin megumgum, that the language of the Ramah over here is imprecise. It's not really accurate. Kavana, and what the Ramah really means over here is in bittul behedya, if you did a new bittul, kaidim shenasan lebehemtai, before you gave the barley and fed the barley to your animal, what does that mean that you did a new bittul? Va'amar, and you said, Kala sa'irim sheyisharu bishar upara, any barley. I'm sorry, I skipped a line. Va'amar kala sa'irim sheyisharu mi behemti mevat l'anoichi. I'm going to feed my animal, and before I go ahead and feed the animal, I have my feed bag, or I'm filling up my feed trough, and I'm saying right now, anything that's left over, I am mevatel from now. So that means that it's becoming bottle before it becomes chametz. As soon as the animal finishes eating, as long as the animal's eating, he's working the food. As soon as the animal finishes eating, everything else becomes bottle. Therefore, the Ramah says, so you covered your bases mid-araisa, because you were mevatel everything with an effective bittul, and anything else, so okay, it's a chash d'Rabbanan, and we don't know for sure that there's saliva over here because you don't see any saliva, and therefore you don't have a problem. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah in ice cutting up. First, we got to continue the Ramah. By me, it's near the end of the second line. Says the Ramah, v'yesh machmirin. However, there are those who rule stringently. Levar kol hanoisa min hamehema, to destroy any grain that's left from the feed that you give the animal, af al pi she'ein roya alav rir, even if you don't see any sign of saliva. So what the Ramah said, that really, in his first opinion, he says, if you don't see signs of saliva, you don't have to be machmir. But he brings down a yesh machmirin. There are those that say that even if you don't see saliva, you should destroy everything that's left over. Says the Mishnah Berurah, and ice cut and hay. Aval pisha ein raya, even though you don't see saliva. The mistama is behurire, because the presumption is that there is saliva. We know the animal put his head in there. We know he was chewing with his mouth and licking with his tongue. So the assumption is that there is saliva there. The this whole discussion is by a horse or other such type of animals. Aval b'shar upara, but an ox or a cow, the vada yesh lahakmir, we should certainly rule stringently. Afilu min astam, even if we don't see saliva, but min astam, we should assume that there is saliva. Because it is well known that a cow or an ox produces a lot of saliva when they eat. I've seen this when the animals eat. You see all sorts of muck and moisture and drool over there. So they produce a lot of saliva. And the Chofetz Chaim continues and he says, it would be proper to act stringently in regards to all animals, levar anoiser, to destroy any leftover grain, any leftover feed after they finish eating, even if you don't see any saliva, and therefore, because of the need to follow this stringency, it would be good that when you feed grain to your animal on Pesach, you should give him a little at a time, so that there should be nothing left over and there should be nothing that has the potential to come to a problem, and we shouldn't get involved in this shayla. Okay, now we go to Siv Gimel, bottom line in the Shulchan Aruch. Sak mole kemach. Let's say you have a sack that's full of flour. It was sitting on top of a stone wall, and the stone wall was sweating, like stones are wont to do in different temperatures. There's moisture on the stone, and the sack of flour was sitting on the stone wall, and it got damp. Mutter, it's permissible. However, v'yesh eisrim, there are those who say that this is prohibited. The Berurah, this is brought down from the Tur, is the name of Rebbe Eliezer Migarmiza. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Katan Vav, Hachaima, the dampness, the sweat of the wall. Now, a chaima is used to refer to a stone wall. So taken that way, the Mechaber is telling you, if you had a sack of flour sitting on top of a stone wall, and the stone wall was sweating, and now the sack of flour got damp from the dampness of the stone wall, so one opinion is that it's mutter, and the second opinion is that it's asur. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut vav, v'hu adin kaiso shel eitz shemazia. Even though the Mechaber used the word chaima, which always refers to a stone wall, it's also true if it's a wall made out of wood. Ice cut and zayin, mutter. The Mechaber said this is mutter. Vein chilik, and there's no difference. Vein mazeh b'amot nemiut avir. Where he's talking about different things that may have generated this moisture. One way moisture gets generated is through, I believe this is what he means when he says miut avir, insufficient air, insufficient ventilation. Kemoisha matzli b'martefim, like you would find in cellars, uvima'arois, or in caves, shaksalim v'ha'avanim mazim, that the walls and the stones have a tendency to sweat. These are underground areas that have very little ventilation. When you have ventilation, why am I thinking now? I want to see how effective radio advertising is. I'm thinking about the wave ventilation system. So when you have a basement that's ventilated, you keep a window open, or you have exhaust fans running, you don't have a buildup of moisture because the damp air is always being expelled, and dry air, fresh dry air, is always being brought in. So sometimes you have zeya, sometimes you have sweat, moisture on the walls or on the stones because of a lack of ventilation. Or it could be that the sweat over here is something that is coming from it's internal to the material that is sweating. Going, for example, if you have a wall that was made out of new bricks, when you make bricks, you mix different materials with water. You mix sand, stone, straw together with water, right? So there is water in the brick. Sometimes you have new bricks. Sometimes new bricks sweat because it didn't thoroughly dry. The bricks haven't thoroughly dried yet. So they exude moisture from in themselves. Now that moisture is water that was added, so that's real mayim. But yet, in this opinion, the Chavetz Chaim tells you that it makes no difference where this dampness is coming from, whether it's from a lack of ventilation or it's from the water that was intrinsic to the materials. Or we're talking about a wooden wall, where sometimes wood is damp and exudes moisture. The Chol Gavni, in all cases, Ein Azeh Machmitz, this kind of sweat, he's calling it, this sweating of the walls does not cause chimutz. This is similar to the halacha that we've seen, which is that for haksharas tuma, what is that? In order for something to be makabel tuma, in order for something to become tameh, well, not everything, but especially foodstuffs, for them to become tameh, they first have to be hukshar lekabel tuma. They have to be prepared to be makabel tuma. How does a food item become prepared to makabel tuma? It has to get wet. So you have an apple. In order for an apple to become tameh, first the apple has to get wet. And it has to get wet from one of 7 specific liquids. We just had this very recently. And those, we had the mnemonic of Yad Shachad Dam. We said those are the 7 liquids, the 7 beverages that could cause Heksher Tumah. Yad Shachad Dam. Yad is Yayin and Dvash. Yad Shachad Dam. Shachat is the shin is shemen, and the shemen is oil, shemen zayis, and the ches is chalav, is milk, and the tes is tal, is dew. Shachat dam, dalit is dam, dalit is blood. Blood is one of the dam, blood is one of the 7 mashkim, one of the 7 beverages that can cause aksharas. And mayim and water. So you need one of those 7 beverages in order to make it hukshal kabel tuma. Now zeya, sweat, is not one of those 7 beverages. So the same way a sweat, a zeya, and it doesn't only mean human perspiration. It means all of these kind of moistures that are exuded from something like this, like a stone wall. It doesn't cause hukshal kabel tuma, and it also does not cause chimutz. Lost the place over here. 1 second. So b'chol gavni ein azeh makmitz k'moy dematzinu leinin hakshir tuma. Zeya ein chashuva k'mayim lahakshir. Zeya is not considered water in the context of being makshir l'kabel tuma. It's also not considered water in the context of kozi chimus. And we call makom, nevertheless, says the Chavetz Chaim here, like odif mimei peros. It's not better in the context of kozi chimus. It's not better than Mei Peros. And therefore, if you according to what we said earlier, the Mei Peros that when you mix Mei Peros together with water, it actually accelerates the chimus process. Then you cannot use this flour that got damp from the sweat of the wall. You can't make a dough with it on Pesach lechatchila. Why? Because yes, it's true. The sweat of the wall will not cause chimutz, but it does have a din of mei peros. And now if you take this flour that got wet from the sweat of the wall, and now you mix in water to make a dough, now you're mixing mayim and mei peros. That may accelerate the chimutz process. If you see that the flour is damp from the wetness of the wall, is there an eitzah? Is there something you could do? Says the Chavetz Chaim, yes. Yirak denu, you could sift the flour, and that will take out the damp clumps. V'yakayim hamaluchlach ad achar Pesach, save the wet clumps of flour for use after Pesach. V'hanoisa yolush v'yoyfel Pesach, and the rest of the dry flour you could use to make a dough for Pesach. The Kasser HaPoskim, the Poskim write, the chol zeh b'zeh haba mikisolim. This is only true where the moisture on the wall is a sweat from the wall. So it's coming from the wall. But if the sweat is coming from the heat and the humidity of hot water that's located in the cave, or in the room. Let's say you have a room and you have a big barrel of steaming hot water in the room. So then you want to know why those stones in the room are sweating? That's not a sweat from the stone. That's, you have water, you have humidity, you have a liquid that's evaporating, you have water that's evaporating in the room, and it's condensing on the stones. So that's coming from the water. And if the sack of flour got wet through that, the kuliyalma have told us amayim umachmitz. That's certainly called told us amayim. Over there, we know that this dampness is coming from the hot water. Then it's told us amayim, and then it's problematic. The Mishnah Berurah Seif, the Shulchan Aruch said v'yesh oisrim. Even though the Mechaber said that the sweat of the wall does not have the capacity, does not have the ability to cause chimutz, and therefore the sack of flour is mutter, he did bring down another opinion, v'yesh oisrim. However, there are those opinions that say it's forbidden. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'yesh oisrim, svir lahu, those of this opinion hold, the lo yalfinan chametz mehechsher tumah. We don't learn out the din of chametz from the din of hechsher tumah. We don't look at hechsher tumah and say zeya is not considered a beverage to cause hechsher tumah, therefore it's also not considered a beverage to cause chimutz. We don't make that comparison. Well, legabe chametz, and in the context of chametz, kol shu retiva shamayim, any moisture of water, yesh by koach la'achmetz, has the ability to cause chametz. V'yesh shekasvu, and there are those that write tam svarazu, that the reason for these opinions that hold that this is usher, lefi shahachoyma mazia mikoach hamayim sheyesh ba. They say, why is a wall perspiring? Why is a wall sweating? Because there's intrinsic water to the wall. There's water that was added to the materials that made the wall. Like we said earlier, if you built a wall out of bricks, you added water to bricks. So the zeya, the moisture exuding from the wood, from the bricks, that's water. That's what it is. Wood is natural. It takes moisture from the ground. It sits outside in the rain, so it takes in mayim. So it exudes mayim. That's water. It absorbs water from rain. You have a wooden wall. It's always getting rained on. It's always absorbing water. So you want to know what this water is? It's mayim. It's water that's being exuded. Sometimes you cut wood and it sits in a wood stack and it gets rained on. So you want to know what this dampness on the wall is? It's water. Well, if this is the reason for those that prohibit the dampness from the wall, because they say that it's water that these materials absorb and it is now exuding, so it's mamish mayim. Well, if you have a natural stone wall, not bricks, rocks, you have a stone wall made out of rocks. Nobody added water to those rocks, and it doesn't absorb rainwater. Rocks don't absorb water. So if this is the rationale for those opinions that answer the sweating of the wall, so then b'zeh shalavanim, if it's a wall of stones, matchis or metal, which is also impervious, it doesn't absorb water, izachuchis or glass, that is also considered impervious, then according to this opinion, these materials, the sweat of these materials, is not considered mayim, and it would be considered meperes. Uladina, as far as Allah the Chavetz Chaim says, Ha'ikar, Keder, Yishayna, we follow the first opinion of Kamosha Sasam HaMechaber, Betchilo, like the Mechaber said, that the sweat of the walls does not cause chimus. Umeperes hen, and they have a din of meperes. Umekamakam yeshlachish l'chatchilo l'das ha'isrin. However, l'chatchilo we should worry about the opinion of those that answer the sweat of the walls. But to hold on to this flour for use after Pesach is mutter. And if you want to use this flour that was in this sack that got damp on Pesach, you could be matter this flour by sifting it and sifting out the damp clumps. And you could do this even if the flour already dried. If the flour already dried, what is sifting going to help? While it's still damp, so by sifting it, you'll remove the damp clumps. But if it already dried out, how is it effective? So if you look, there's a lengthy Sharitzian over here, Oischav Beis, he explains the answer to that question. If you do sift the flour, so that anything that you find damp, you'll throw away, and the rest you'll be able to use. We're going to stop over here for today. We'll continue tomorrow, Mr. Hashem, with Siv Dalet. Once again, I thank all of those that joined me for Limud HaTorah. The schus of Limud HaTorah should stand Gans Klal Yisrael in good stead. Anyone who needs Yeshuas and Refuas, the Rosh Hashanah should send it quickly. Anyone who's suffering for Parnasa, the Rosh Hashanah should send Parnasa quickly. And we're, like always, we mispower to the Rebbeinu Shalom that all of the tzaras should disappear. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Mashiach Tzidkenu. We should be zeicher to be Oved Hashem in Yerushalayim by the Beis Hamikdash. Be well.